morning we're fortunate to have Ron Brown in our audience today. Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the June 29th, 2017 meeting of the Shawnee County Board of Commissioners. My name is Bob Archer. I currently serve as chair of the commission and represent District 3 alongside Commissioner Shelley Bueller, who represents District 1, and Commissioner Kevin Cook, who represents District 2. Good morning and welcome, everyone.
Good morning.
First item of business, please.
First item is item 3, consent agenda.
Are there questions or one item on the consent agenda?
I have none.
I have none.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve the consent agenda by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye, opposed no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Item 4, new business, A, County Clerk number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Commissioners, this morning we have vouchers that total $1,755,335.27. The majority of the vouchers make up our allocations, and this is a part of the allocation that we make. And just to kind of go through the allocations that we make, they include the Extension Council, Breakthrough House, CASA, Catholic Charities, Community Action, the Doorstep, East Topeka Council on Aging, Harvesters, Helping Hands, Housing and Credit Counseling, Jayhawk Area Agency on Aging, Kansas Legal Services, Let's Help, Meals on Wheels, Midland Care Connection, Pappin's Landing, Positive Connections, Rossville Senior Citizens, Shawnee County Fair, Shawnee County Medical Society, Shawnee Regional Prevention, Silver Lake Senior Center, the Soil Conservation, TARC, Topeka Habitat for Humanity, LULAC, Topeka Youth Project, the Vallejo Behavioral Health Care, and then also the YWCA. And so just to kind of go through all of those different allocations that we make to social services in our community. The remainder of the vouchers was with Department of Corrections, the State of Kansas for holding accounts for motor vehicle fund, our payment to the coroner, and then also Parks and Recreation expenses. I do not have any question. I would move for their approval.
I'll second.
Yes, I thank you for bringing that. I don't think we ever should lose sight of the way Shawnee County supports community volunteers in action in our community. Thank you, Commissioner Cook. Motion made to approve by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Item A2, consider correction orders. I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve the correction orders by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Item B, emergency management number 1, consider approval of request to waive Shawnee County Code section 21-58, 21-55C, 21-253A, and 21-252F to allow use of shelter house number 6 overnight as part of Operation Pegasus.
Morning, Commissioners. Nelson Castile, Emergency Management. This is a part of the Operation Pegasus suite. We'll be holding that full-scale exercise on those 2 days, and there will be an overnight exercise. This will be one of several locations that could be having a impact or having a play in the exercise during those 3 periods. Due to the code, we're not allowed to pitch tents or anything that we may use during a real disaster or stay overnight, and so we're asking just to waive those provisions, and we've talked with Director Knight about this.
Could you give us a little bit more detail about Operation Pegasus and how this part of the exercise is going to benefit?
Without giving away too much of the scenario, the idea is we have a full-day exercise on Thursday that will involve a hazardous material. We'll have a full-day exercise on Friday that involves a hazardous material. We will have a large number of volunteers and other folks that we are going to try to pull from that pool and use them for a sheltering exercise, such as what the Salvation Army, American Red Cross, and our VOADs would be setting up. That's one of the gaps that we often see, is that we say we're going to set up shelters, but we don't realize how much manpower and the logistics, how intensive that is when we go to do that. It's easy to say we're going to set one up, but it's really hard to set one up if you're not prepared. You're going to be dealing with, in a real disaster, a lot of folks that are not having the best day, so you have to have everything fine-tuned and ready. This will help us test what's in the emergency operating plans for shelters and for sheltering and any of our mass care.
Very good. Questions? Commissioner Cook?
But just to kind of maybe even break down just a little bit more, the Operation Pegasus, if I understand the idea, is we draw up how do we respond in an emergency. And Operation Pegasus is to be a simulation of an emergency and how are we actually going to react when that occurs. And so this is a simulation of us going through the steps, and so that we're prepared.
Yes, sir. Yep, that's what the exercises are about. It started in March with the training, and then we had a tabletop exercise, which Commissioner Bueller attended. We had some more training just this last month to go over any rough edges we found, and then in July on the 20th and 21st, and overnight between those two, we'll have the remaining 3 full scales, and then we'll look at what went well, what didn't go well, what were the lessons learned, and then for next year, for the hazardous material emergency preparedness grant, we will put in for training or anything that can help us fill any of those gaps that we found. If we find that we need sheltering or decontamination or anything related to hazmat, it gives us a chance to train our people, make sure that they're up, and then eventually do another full-scale exercise. And it's just a continuous cycle of writing the plans, testing the plan, working to make sure that we've solved the problems in the plan, and then you just keep going on it, especially with the amount of turnover that we see in the emergency services. A lot of those folks that were here for the last full scale have either gone on to better things or they've retired, and that often that institutional knowledge goes with them, so this helps us capture that as well.
And just
Sure.
while we're talking about one typical scenario, the idea is how do we respond in a variety of scenarios with how do we shelter a lot of people, and how is the community going to be able to pull together our resources in an emergency?
Yes, sir. It's most of our exercises are based on the all hazards, whole community approach. Because the grant was for hazardous materials, we'll focus the scenarios on the hazardous materials, but much of what we do in a hazardous material is going to play off of what we would do in an all hazards incident. The biggest portion of it that we find is the resource management. We saw it with the fires in south central Kansas. We see it whenever a tornado wipes out a town. We have to manage those resources, because a lot of folks forget that just because something bad is going on in this area, life still goes on in this area, so we cannot just pull everything out. And a big part of the emergency operations plan and the emergency support function, some of who are in the room here, is to help with that resource management, to make sure that we're using them wisely, we're still able to do the everyday stuff that's going on. Part of this exercise will help decide where do we put people, who do we call, who do we not call, what's the schedule of calling, and the same thing with a shelter. Because a shelter is so labor intensive, who do we want in the shelter, who's going to be going to it. A lot of times people that don't need to go to a shelter because they were told, well, go to the shelter. And so we work to educate folks as to if you're able to shelter where you are, that's always the best. But if we need to put you in a shelter, what special accommodations do we need to make? If we're getting too many people in a shelter, do we need another shelter, and do we need the manpower to do that?
Thank you.
Very good. I have no questions. I'll move approval of the request.
Second.
I think the bottom line is you can't over-prepare for an emergency like that, and I appreciate your efforts in that. Motion made to approve by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Nelson. Next item, please.
Item C, corrections. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C 2014-2017 memorandum of agreement with USD 501, Topeka Police Department, and Kansas Children's Service League to establish better discernment and collaboration between community agencies that are involved in the referral of students with school-based unwanted behaviors to law enforcement or the juvenile justice system.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Cole, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. I'm very honored today to be a part of this, memorandum of understanding and agreement with some very good community partners that help us with our mission at the Department of Corrections. As the clerk had mentioned, this is a memorandum of agreement and understanding between the Topeka Unified School District 501, Topeka Police Department, and the Children's Service League in basically our juvenile intake and assessment center. And this allows us to continue our collaboration and our partnership in how do we deal with the referrals of those juveniles when they're in the school districts. And the goal is try to find ways to better handle our juveniles instead of always ending up in incarceration. That along with the much talk about Senate Bill 367, this establishes guidelines and our responsibilities in handling an event in a school setting. We do have 501 school district in our jail. It is a little bit different because the people that are already, or the individuals that are already in our setting are already arrested. But this allows us to, how do we better establish guidelines when there's an actual event in a school district, all the way up that leads to the circumstances to incarceration. Today I'm here in partnership with Director of Security for 501 Ron Brown, retired law professor Michael Kay with the Washburn University, and Cindy Kelly, attorney for 501. And I asked them to be here today to provide maybe some more in-depth understanding of the memorandum of understanding and how this will impact and better our communities. So I was going to ask, I've invited them and asked Ron maybe to come through real quick and maybe give us an update and how that can help us.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, thank you for this opportunity to be here. We have worked a great deal to put this together over a period of time. Shawnee County Corrections with Director Cole and Angela McCarty have been instrumental in assisting us throughout this process and reducing the number of young people that are in the juvenile detention facility. Through the Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative that they have been involved in for years, we have drastically reduced the population of young people in the juvenile detention facility. The intent of this, of course, first of all, is law. 367 was passed by the Kansas legislature, which requires it to go into effect, our portion of it primarily on 1 July, and so that's part of the reason that we're here today. We were very fortunate to have Professor Kay come aboard with us and volunteer a great deal of his time to go throughout the state of Kansas and look at different cities and what they are doing, and then work in collaboration with our attorney, Cindy Kelly, to put this document together. Then as a result of that, we hosted a couple of meetings with the superintendent hosting over at our office with Shawnee County Department of Corrections. We had the district attorney's office there. Judge Wilson also attended, and so we worked through a lot of the details with regard to this MOU. But the bottom line is this: the intent is to reduce the number of young people being incarcerated. So we're looking at alternatives to detention as part of this initiative in partnership with Shawnee County, and then also to look at the concept of disproportionate minority contact, which we know for a fact is occurring in the state of Kansas, and was part of the genesis nationally for this type of legislation. So we are going to look at alternatives, find ways to use diversion, find ways to use school remedies in order to deal with these. And I don't, obviously, I don't know if it's occurred yet, but the other districts within Shawnee County will be coming forward too with similar MOUs because it's required of each district to do.
Questions for Ron? Commissioner Cook?
In a practical, how is this going to impact how we do our business in Shawnee County with our school districts and our law enforcement, with our Department of Corrections? I mean, what are some of the things that we're really going to see an impact out of this memorandum or this agreement?
In my opinion, I think what we will see is more collaboration with juvenile intake, with regard to diversions, working with the district attorney's office to find alternatives, possibly diversion, immediate intervention type of scenarios where we are going to be able to look at the totality of the circumstance in which this child has misbehaved and look at a remedy other than arrest that might assist us in that. The other thing it's going to do too is we are going to be, law enforcement will be providing more notices to appear versus custodial arrest as part of the memorandum of understanding. So we're not going to take that child into custody in a school setting. We are going to issue a notice to appear for them to go to juvenile intake and then work through the system in that way.
And so would I be correct in assuming that we're working more with the families to address whatever the issues are as an alternative to interactions with the legal system?
Yes, that's the overall intent. Of course, the law enforcement aspect wouldn't necessarily be working with the family, but the schools will. And we would be part of that through the concept of restorative justice. We would be working with the families to try and determine why are you behaving this way and how can we remedy that. Because we understand through the data that the vast majority of young people who do something as a teenager do not commit crimes as an adult. So what we don't want to do is give them a black mark early on, and then when they apply for college or try to get a job and they say, have you ever been arrested? They have to put yes. We see that as a detriment. So by finding an alternative to that, we think that will help children be more successful. Cindy?
If I could, we also
Oh,
hope to
please.
have, we also hope to have more alternatives available.
For the record, would you identify yourself,
Oh,
please?
sure.
Sorry.
I'm Cindy Kelly. I'm the school attorney for about 2 more weeks for USD 501, at which time I will retire. But I've had a great time working on this agreement. And one of the things, we received a juvenile justice grant, so we will have a lot more therapeutic services and mediation and other type services available for kids within the school system itself. So when kids are committing low-level offenses, misdemeanors that aren't violent in nature, rather than looking at arrest as an option, we hope to be able to address some of those behaviors directly through things we'll have in place at school.
Thank you.
Thank you. And one of the last things that I'll add is that I think Ron said it very well, that, when it comes to us and looking at our impact on reentry, often we want to do our best not to embarrass a juvenile who's had some type of altercation in school. We won't want to hinder them being able to get a job or further education. But when, Commissioner Cook, you asked about the impact, one of the biggest impacts I can see also is going from the very costly alternative of incarceration to a much more therapeutic, much more hands-on approach before you get there. Because the impact we've seen now, 2015, 14, we were as high as sometimes as 70 juveniles. A lot of those were there for just maybe minor offenses. Our average daily population right now is about 30. So we're seeing a very big impact, very good, significant financial impact to the county, but also, I think, much more impact of the humanity of dealing with the kids outside of an incarcerated setting.
And I think that, Commissioner,
Oh, sure.
I think that what we see is early intervention is often the key, whether it's with mental health issues, whether it's with behavioral issues, addressing it as early on as possible, working with the family so that we can stop a crisis from becoming a larger crisis. We see that working with Family Service and Guidance Center, with Vallejo, and really trying to address this early on as we can within the families.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Question, Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman.
Bueller.
What manner of reporting then is taking place? I mean, I know this is just an MOU, it's better collaboration, it's no dollars, but as far as reporting on progress of the better collaboration,
One of the things that we're going to start doing, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, and I see there's some school safety reporting, there's some child abuse reporting, there's some things already that are being done at schools, but
I
from a
think
county
that
perspective.
there will be a tremendous amount of data and statistical taking on this to show, obviously, being able to report of the success and things like that. One of the things that we're going to do from the standpoint of the Department of Corrections is that something that I don't think that's ever been done in the last, well, since I've been there, is a recidivism rate, being able to look at repeat offenders. And one of the things right now is that I'm working very diligently with staff to determine what our actual recidivism rate is in Shawnee County. So, my intent on this is being able to have a better financial impact of always throwing money at the jail and putting it into other services where I think I would much rather see. I'm not saying I want money taken away, but what I am asking is that this will help us with, I think, our obligation to the community of not just putting money into the jail, but putting it into other alternatives. But as far as the reporting the schools do, I will be unfamiliar with any of that reporting, but I can tell you what we're going to do. And we will work right along with Angela, who is the coordinator for JDAI, and the reporting. And I can certainly have Angela with Ron and whomever to come up, and we can do a quarterly report or somehow, and after they figure out what type of the reporting.
Sure.
I'm sure that's something that can be done.
I just think it'd be good to see if there's progress.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. I can tell you from the corrections side, there's tremendous progress.
Good.
Good. Good. Additional questions or comments?
And I'll move approval of the contract, or did somebody already do that?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Bueller and seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you all.
It's appreciated, and thank you, Brian. Next item, please.
Item D, Health Department, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-215-2017 with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, awarding $956,968 in grant funding from the 2018 state fiscal year.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Edith Matthews, the Finance Officer with the Health Department. On March 19th, the Commission already gave approval for the Health Department to apply for $1,070,638,000 in aid to local grants from KDHE for our state fiscal year 2018. We have received the notice of grant awards from KDHE that we were awarded $956,968. So this is a $35,499 decrease from what we received in 2017. When we initially applied for funding, the mosquito surveillance project was included in the aid to local grants, but during the review process, they pulled that application and issued a separate contract, of which the Commission had signed on June 19th. So the majority of the cuts that we received are in the maternal and child health and the WIC immunization action plan, which KDHE had combined into one grant this year. So the WIC IAP program took a 31% reduction of $16,304. These cuts are offset by 47% increase of $22,830 in our WIC immunization collaboration project, which uses the same nursing staff. So the MCH project took a 10% reduction in the amount of $37,900. And over the past 3 years, the MCH program has sustained 20% in reductions, totaling just over $96,000. KDHE has told us that this is in part due to that according to the state formula, the health department has been overfunded in past years. And we believe it's also because the state has suffered budget cuts in the MCH program from the Federal Department of Health and Human Services. So due to the cuts in the MCH program, we currently have a vacant RN position that we will not be able to fill and will probably have to eliminate. And we will also have to change the scope in our services that we provide. So that concludes my notes on the KDHE aid to local grants, and I will receive any questions you may have.
The only question I would have is, you said that KDHE has determined that we were overfunded for several years.
Yes.
Would you explain that a little bit and what got us to that point?
Well, I believe that they had had a change in leadership, and they reviewed the state funding formula and determined at that time we had been receiving more, so we've been receiving cuts for the past several years for that reason. But I don't know exactly what the formula is that they use.
But do you know how much?
That I do not know. The MCH program manager is in contact with MCH to find out the answer to that.
I think that would be good to know, and the rationale. And has this occurred with other counties in their health departments?
We can find that out.
Yeah, okay.
Commissioner,
Yes, Commissioner Cook.
I just note that, we did receive 89%, almost 90% of what was requested. So while it is a reduction, we can look that the state did fund 90% of what was requested.
Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Additional
further.
comments or questions?
I'll move approval of the contract.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye, opposed no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, and I look forward to that additional information. Next item, please.
Item E, facilities maintenance. Number 1, consider approval of request to utilize contingency funding to pay Minnesota Elevator, Inc. for emergency repair of courthouse elevator number 4 in the amount of $1,700.50.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bill Kroll, Facilities Maintenance Director. Unknown to a lot of people, there are actually 4 elevators in the courthouse. The 4th one is tucked behind some doors, and it's used for inmate transport to go up and down to the courts. On May 26th, that elevator suffered not a catastrophic, but a major breakdown, and fortunately it was late in the afternoon and everything was pretty much done for the day. We were able to get a hold of Minnesota Elevator, and with the holiday, they were able to get it repaired before we returned to normal business on the following Tuesday after Memorial Day. It's not a repair I was expecting by any stretch of the imagination, and I did discuss it with Betty Griner and asked that it could be paid for through contingency funding.
I'll move to approve the request.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Archer, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye, opposed no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Bill. Next item, please.
Item F, commission. Number 1, consider reappointment of Kent Reed, Frank Henderson Jr., and Walter Shoemaker to the Community Corrections Board for 2 years expiring June 30th, 2019.
I will so move for approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve the reappointments by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye, opposed no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Item F2, consider reappointment of Max Wilson and Sue Lockett to the Juvenile Correction Advisory Board for 3 years expiring June 30th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye, opposed no. Motion carries 3-0. Next, please.
Item F3, consider reappointment of Mike Wilson to the MTAA Board retroactive to December 1 of 2016 and expiring on November 30, 2019.
I will move for approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye, opposed no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Item F4, consider reappointment of Mary Wilson to the Community Action Board for a 2-year term expiring June 26, 2019.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye, opposed no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Item 5, administrative communications.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Blanc with Public Works and Solid Waste. I have a few items. The first one, I wanted to let everyone know that we've been notified. We have a public drop-off recycling location at Brewster Place at 1205 Southwest 29th Street. Brewster Place is going to be going through some fairly major construction, and they've asked us to remove that location permanently from their facilities. We have identified several other properties that we think we may be able to relocate that drop-off location to, but we have yet to contact, or we are in the process of contacting some of the property owners to see if they would be agreeable. So any folks that might be looking to drop off recycling publicly at Brewster Place, that will no longer be there. Also, next week, with it being a holiday week, the 4th of July on Tuesday, we have a slight revision to our schedule. Essentially, everyone will be the same, except Tuesday customers will be picked up on Wednesday. That's the only change. So the 4th of July is on Tuesday, so again, Tuesday customers on Wednesday. And with that said, we want to reiterate to folks that fireworks, if they throw them away, they need to be completely doused in water before they put in the container. As you know, those are very flammable and can cause a lot of problems if they are not and they spark. So if they are going to throw them away, they need to be doused in water and be fully extinguished. So, thank you.
Good morning, Hans Niska, Kansas Expo Center. Just wanted to give a quick update from the Expo Center. A couple things. Working on a couple of big capital expenditure items that have been approved in the past. We have our fans going up in Domer, actually being wired in today, so hopefully they're spinning and moving air today, which is exciting for people that frequent Domer, especially the equine people. They'll be excited for a summer of air movement that hasn't previously existed in Domer Arena. So, also putting that air conditioning unit in the data closet. But I did want to take this opportunity, obviously on a slow Independence Day weekend at the Expo Center, to update everybody on our third Thursdays, as recommended by Commissioner Bueller at our advisory board meeting yesterday. She suggested that we put more emphasis on what the real reason for the third Thursday events are that we've created and sort of started to grow, and there's a lot of success and behind them. But the important thing that needs to be stated, and she suggested that we state it more often and earlier on, is the beneficiaries of these events. It's a community event with live music and community gathering, but the important thing that often gets understated is that these events are built to benefit nonprofits and foundations and fundraising opportunities. And so she suggested that we speak earlier and more often about who benefits from these. So I want to take this opportunity to do that. July 20th is a casino night. That's the next third Thursday. It's a casino night that benefits the Topeka VA Hospital. And the following one is August 17th. The theme is Back to School Luau, and that benefits the Boys and Girls Club. And the September 21st one is Country After Hours, benefiting Healing and Hope Academy. So the growth and success of these events does not benefit the Expo Center financially in any way. It's a free community event. The whole idea behind them is to grow an opportunity for people to gather and get together, and then they're obviously built around these fundraising opportunities for foundations. So I just wanted to make sure we communicate that fully and make sure everyone's aware of that.
Thanks.
Is that good enough, Ms. Wheeler?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, all righty, bye, guys. Anyone else for administrative communications? Commissioner Cook.
Just thanking everybody who has been appointed to serve on the board. So our boards and committees wouldn't work if not but for volunteers. And there's a lot of volunteers in our community, and just wanting to thank them for their service to the different boards that they've been appointed to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agree. Yeah.
Yes.
Good time.
Sure.
John, I might bring you up to the podium just a little bit. I know that I have received a couple of calls, and I think Commissioner Archer has too, on the future of the noxious weed department. And I know that we did some restructuring a couple years ago where we placed that supervision under Parks and Recreation, and so that's been functioning that way for almost 2 years now. There have been some changes, but you know, as rumors get started, then they seem to grow, and so it might be a good idea Monday if we would have just a presentation on what changes have been, you know, made at
Absolutely. What I suggest doing is maybe I put together, that was part of the budget, the strategic plan that was put part of the budget. I was going to wait till July 19th at our hearing to put that on, but I'd be glad to put that on for information. And I too have received a couple of calls. The calls I received, they had erroneous information, and I was able to correct them. But either way, there's some people with questions, and they probably need their answers, and I'd be glad to do that on Monday if that's okay with the commission.
It's a suggestion.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah, I've received inquiries about the future of noxious weeds in our community, and yeah, I think the timing would be good. And then it sort of set the foundation when we talk about budgets later on. So thank you, Commissioner Mueller, for bringing that up. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
And we'll look
Commissioners.
forward to hearing from you Monday.
The only
Anything else?
other thing I
Yes.
had was to wish Jocelyn Lyons, she's the Executive Director of the Jayhawk Area Agency on Aging, and she has been there for 40 years, and she's retiring. And so there is a reception for her tomorrow from 3 to 5:30 at top of the tower. So I just wanted to thank her for all her years of service.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Okay. I would like to say once again, congratulations to Midwest Health. It was a really good event yesterday. Thank you for attending, Commissioner Bueller. I know Commissioner Cook had a previous engagement, but it was a beautiful day, unlike a year ago when we opened the joint. So it was really nice event, and we can't say enough thank you to Jim Klossman and Butch Eaton for really investing in our community and making it a much better place to live. I was very touched by the award and the ceremony. So, again, thank you. Next item, please.
Item 6, executive session.
There is a need for an executive session, and I'll make a motion to go into executive session for a period not to exceed 30 minutes for discussion of non-elected personnel and consultation with an attorney for the body or agency which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship to discuss pending contract negotiations, and that is a motion.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Archer, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. We are in executive session, and thanks again for coming this morning.
Imagine you knocked that little 4-year-old over. Pretty much.
We good? Thank you. We are back in session. No action is required, and we're officially adjourned.
John, you survived another week. Survived another weekend.